Hey, welcome to Bussey's Garage. I'm Dan. Today I'm going to show you how to turn this into this. A really great car camping no tree hammock hang. Very simple, and let's get started.
Well, with the exception of one other piece of gear that I'll introduce later, basically it's 50 feet of rope, one 24-inch stake, and two 2x4s about 7.5 feet long. This is assuming that you don't have any trees. I usually tie up to my truck when I'm in the desert, so I put a 2x4 in the back of the truck, and that does the job. You could use a tree if you had one tree. So this system assumes that you have one anchor point to your disposal. I've got some trees outside my fence line, so I typically have been tying up to this podocarpus for years. Doesn't seem to bother it. I'm going to use a bunt line hitch here and secure off just to get this project started. Give me an anchor point. This could be my truck. It usually is my truck, but when I'm in the backyard I use this tree here. It works pretty good. I just have to stand on a bucket to reach it. So stretch the rope out in the direction that you want to have your hammock line. And I usually drive the stake in at a good angle. My stake's about 24 inches long. I've got a loop welded on one end. You don't have to have a loop, but some sort of a preventer on the end to keep the rope from coming off is a good idea. Pound it on in there. I go out about, I guess, around 30 feet from the tree. Now, like I say, I can't tie my hammock to the tree, so I'll be showing you the basic setup and then a modification so that I don't have to use the tree to tie off to. So basically, here's the two 2x4s. They're about 7.5 feet long. The bolt's driven in about 6 inches from one end. Kind of turns them into a giant pair of scissors. And you can see where we're going with this. You got a big A-frame. So about 10 feet from the stake is a good position. The angle of the boards is not critical. Just have them about 10 feet out from the stake. So gather up the rope. You're going to make a loop and drop it over the top of your A-frame. I'll show you a close-up of the loop a little later on so you kind of see how it's rigged. I don't think it has a name. It may have a name, but I just kind of came up with this on my own. Just make a loop over, reach through, grab the rope, and make it a little larger so it'll go around both of the 2x4s, and then just kind of loop it over the top with the center rope dropping in between the two boards. As I said, I'll show you a detailed shot of it later. But that captures the A-frame so that it can't slide forward or backward. Verticality isn't critical. Just kind of stand it up. You can move it later. Even once it's staked down, you can move it around. So come through your loop or around your post. If you're about 10 feet out, you'll be at a shallow 45. Then you'll make a trucker's hitch. It's an easy one to find on the internet. You can pull really hard on this thing. It's not going anywhere. You're tied off to a tree or your truck or something like that. Just pull hard, make it tight as you can get it. Tie it off with a couple of half hitches. It's critical that you tie it off and then lock it because it will slide if you don't lock it off. So now you've got an A-frame that's not going to move. You could pull on the rope, but the A-frame does not change position. So this is the basic setup. You've got that tree off in the distance that you're anchored to, and then you've got this A-frame. Now, I can't tie my hammock to that tree, so I came up with a little addition to this process. It's a piece of ABS pipe. So what I'll do is I'll drop that ABS about 15 feet away from my A-frame. And I'll drop the A-frame, untie the anchor, and what I'll do is I'll tie a alpine butterfly knot or alpine butterfly loop It's an easy one to find on the internet. It's not hard to tie, but it's a great knot, comes apart easy. It's easy to throw into the middle of a piece of line. This will shorten your line just a little bit, of course, with a knot, but you can just adjust the feet of your A-frame, get it somewhat vertical, and go ahead and retie it off. Again, you could pull really hard on this thing. The Alpine butterfly knot will not slip or tighten up, and you basically now have 2 points whereby you can attach your hammock, and you don't have to worry about tying off to that tree. This works really well if you don't want to tie your hammock right up to your truck. You want some room, you've got camp right there, you want your hammock to be a little ways away from the truck. This is a good way to do it. It gets your hammock 15 or so feet away from your pickup truck. So there you have it. Now a little bit of a close-up here. I'll show you how the detail is for the trucker's hitch. Let's just get some zooming going here. So there's our stake, say about a 24-inch stake driven in. Come up at roughly a 45. You're about 10 feet away from your A-frame. Got a trucker's hitch right there. It's tied slippery. And there's that loop that I made around the top. That knot in the middle of the line is where I tied the two 25-foot sections of the 50-foot rope together. I decided one day it was too long at 50 feet and cut it by mistake. So there's a close-up of the knot that, or the loop that secures the top of the A-frame. Very simple. You just take a bite in the line, flip it over, and reach through and grab the working line, pull it up through. So here's our Alpine butterfly knot. It's got the distinctive X there with the two loops coming out, or the two lines coming over. And what I've done with the ABS is notch it so that the knot can set down inside the pipe. It secures the pipe so the pipe can't slide back and forth. Don't tie your hammock off to the pipe. That's a mistake. You want to tie off to that loop. Now, I've done it this way many times, but I have modified it. You can see how the knot drops into the notches. You reach up, grab the loop, pull it down, and you can just sheet bend your hammock straps to that loop. On some occasions that loop will try to jump out of there, so I have a modification. Alright, so let's go and show you a modification I did to that to ensure that it doesn't leave me sitting on the ground in the middle of the night. I believe that's a 4-inch ABS pipe, and it's about 6 feet tall. It's just one I had laying around. So I took an 1.5-inch hole saw, and I'm going to put a hole in this ABS. Don't get too close to your notch. I think there's a possibility that you could split the ABS. So come down a ways, and in line with that notch, put a hole in there. Put it at an angle so that you can sort of simulate the angle that your hammock straps will come away at. If you've ever used a hole saw, you always want to start straight until you got a good hole established before you start to angle that thing, otherwise it'll jump all around. Wear gloves. It's a good idea. So back to our Alpine butterfly loop. We're going to reinstall our ABS pipe with a little modification. I like this better. It took me all of 10 minutes to modify this thing, but it's so secure, it's not going anywhere. Keep in mind, you can't use a stake in the ground on the tree into this setup. You have to use something elevated. Alright, so here's the hammock all set up between the A-frame and the ABS. I've got a Hammock Gear Cuban fiber tarp with doors and a Blackbird XLC by Warbonnet hanging there. I use whoopee slings to a marlin spike hitch to flat straps. I've got a piece of Dutch gear on one end of those flat straps, and then on the other end of the hammock I usually do it the same, but in this case, since I'm hanging to a loop, I just do a sheet bend from the flat strap to the loop that's in the ABS, and I use a marlin spike hitch on that end as well with whoopee slings. Works out really well. It's good for just about any combination I come up with, trees or ABS or 2x4s, whatever the case may be. So as I said, that tree I've been tying to it for a long time, and that rope does not seem to bother it one bit. It's my tree, by the way. It's not a neighbor or... So the ridge line of my tarp is not exerting enough force on that ABS to pull it out of position. Obviously, though, by the way I have that rigged, you couldn't pull the ABS out of position because of the way the loop passes through the hole. I've got the tarp suspended in a low porch mode with my hiking poles, and all the lines that are connected to the tarp stay on there all the time. I just roll it up and put it in the snake skin. But it gives me the opportunity with that line above to pitch the tarp high or low depending on what the weather's going to do. I typically like it high, but for the purposes of this video I pitched it low so you could see a foul weather setup. You've got the potential for two ridge lines. The stake is very secure. I've never had it pull out. It's easy to get out of the ground. You hit it on the side a couple times with the mallet and then just use the rope to pull it out by the loop. That's where the loop helps. Setup is about half an hour. Teardown's about 15 minutes. So that includes putting the tarp and hammock on there. So pretty simple, pretty fast, really great for car camping. Admittedly, you have to have one tie-out point for this system to work. In my case, it's a pickup truck. If you don't have a pickup or something to tie to, certainly a tree would work, but you could always use two A-frames and two stakes. The principle would be the same. The A-frames could be placed any distance apart, and you could still use the ABS to position one or even two hammocks in a system like this. Alright, hope you like it. Thanks for watching.